Henderson, member of FWA, and so grateful for this community and for Julie for getting this whole thing going. I am impersonating Christy McGill today. And so I'm just here to introduce our amazing guest. So Taresa, I'm going to go through this little intro that Christy sent to me. I'm excited to introduce today's session. So the session is about self-awareness in leadership. As leaders, we often spend so much time focused on developing our teams that we forget the most important leadership tool we have is actually ourselves. The way we communicate, the way we make decisions, navigate conflict, and inspire others all starts with understanding who we are and how we show up. Today's speaker is Taresa Scott. She is the founder and chief learning strategist at Blueprint, where she helps organizations transform workplace friction into human-centered solutions. She partners with leaders to build agile, future-ready teams by embedding continuous learning into company culture so that stronger performance and employee retention move forward together. Today, Taresa is going to share practical strategies for developing greater self-awareness and how that foundation can lead to stronger leadership, healthier teams, and better business outcomes. So please join me in welcoming Taresa Scott. And as we kick to her, I did let her know that as a group, everybody's really great with the chat. So I will be keeping an eye on chat, and I will be chiming in here and there with things that we want to shout out to her. But also feel free to raise your hand anytime as well, and we'll wrap up with questions at the end. So without further ado, Taresa, over to you.
Well, thank you very much for that grand introduction. I'm super excited to be with you guys. So we'll just kind of get into it. I've already forewarned the team that, guys, I'm all about social learning. So this session is not just me talking at you. There'll be points where I want you to like engage, talk with me the whole nine. So you'll know what those points are, but don't be afraid to do it. I won't be calling anybody out, but definitely ready to get into it. So let me share my screen and let's get things started. Da, 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 da. There we go. Bear with me.
The beauty of Zoom and technology.
I
We are all
I know,
there.
right? And then
We got you. It's
I
coming. I
got
see it.
multiple screens, and I'm like, okay, what's the screen?
Yep, there it is.
Right, let's see. And present. There we go. Can you guys see my presentation on the screen?
We got it. Yes. Good job. There it
All
is.
right, all right, all right. So, of course, we have the beautiful introduction, but just to reiterate, today's topic is all about self-awareness in leadership. And the real key purpose is to talk about why it matters. Like, why is it so important? Because at the end of the day, self-awareness really helps you notice your habits, your tone, and your impact on other people. So the more you understand yourself better, you lead with more in care, intention, and confidence. And so that's really the ultimate goal of really diving into this topic. Before I get into it, I always think about when you hear the word self-awareness, like what comes to your mind? What's that first thing that kind of that triggers for you when you hear self-awareness? Jump in the chat. Oh, come on, mute. Oh, I can't see the personality traits. My bossiness, physical appearance, how I'm being perceived, knowing your why and how you best operate, how others see me. Ooh, do others digest me? I think how I'm coming across to others. These are all perfect, spot on. This is exactly it. Yeah, I love that. And because I always think about self-reflection, me looking in the mirror, and also alignment, like not just who you think you are, but how you actually show up. And I think someone said something very similar to that in the comments. So let's talk about a couple of things. So first, I want to get into why it even matters in the first place, right? Because many leaders think self-awareness is just simply knowing yourself. And of course, I can tell by this group of people that you all don't think it's just simply knowing yourself. You know it's much deeper than that. And so, because at the end of the day, it affects like how you make decisions, how you handle stress, and how people experience you at work. So a leader who knows their own patterns, they're able to lead a team and with more trust and less confusion. Again, better decisions, better communication, and that's what gets you to that stronger team dynamic. So what you're seeing here is how we can define this, right? Self-awareness means paying attention to what you do, why you do it, and how it lands for others. Again, so for example, you may think you sound firm, right? But your team might hear you as someone that's rushing or someone that's upset. But in your mind, I'm just simply being firm and making a statement. Again, it's perception. But that gap matters because leadership is not only about intent, it's about impact. So when you consider your habits, your triggers, your tone, your impact, again, all of that bubbles up to your self-awareness. So self-aware leaders notice what is happening before they react. They're not just simply going off emotion, right? They pause, they listen, they adjust, especially when it's needed the most. And a simple example of this is knowing um, if you know you get short when you're tired, you can slow down before a hard conversation, right? Pause. You might be aware of how you're feeling, how that might come off. Just simply pause. So I'm curious from the group that's here today, type it in the chat or even come off mute, say it out loud. What is one behavior that you want to improve? Let's see what we got. I blurt things out sometimes, feels harsh. Less people please. Ooh, mm, oh, those are valid. Those are valid. Not too much. I think we're all kind of guilty at a certain times of blurting things out. I know if I get real, I know I'm the type of person, if I get really excited and we're having a conversation, if it comes to mind, I'm just gonna blurt it out. And I don't mean any harm by it, but I'm just so engaged, so excited, right? Being perceived as too polished, not delegating properly. Okay. I like these, I like these, I like these. And what I really appreciate about you all's responses is that you're very much in tune and aware of how you show up already, right? You already have a foundation of self-awareness within yourself. So I love that. So here are a couple of signs and where leaders really get themselves off track, right? So and it typically happens the most when you're under pressure. You answer too fast, you take over too much, somebody's doing something, you say, you know what, let me do it myself, right? Let me do that for you. Or you make a choice before fully listening to really understand what the actual need is. And a lot of times that happens is with a common example is sending an email that's really quick, out of frustration, and then you haven't fixed the damage later, right? We've all been in a position where we've gotten a message. It might be in the middle of a meeting you just finished or a one-on-one you just concluded or maybe the kids calling something happened and you're sending a message out way too quick and they're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, let me fix this later. But what you're seeing here on the screen are the common things that really get us off track again. Stress, that urgency, your ego, fear, and it all has to run back to those old habits, right? Of fixing and not delegating and taking over and responding too quickly. All these things. But I'll tell you, when it comes down to your communication, that style shapes how others respond back to you. So a sharp tone, it easily creates fear. Even if your words are correct, that tone is everything, right? A calm, clear tone, however, helps people to stay open and helps them to stay engaged. It sounds more collaborative. It sounds less like an attack and more just like a, one-on-one or a collaborative discussion. So before you hit send or speak, ask yourself, how would this sound to the other person? Like, how would they perceive this message? If I put myself in the other person's shoes, based on what they know, based on what I know, right? How would this message be perceived based on my tone, the timing, if you're in person or maybe on Zoom, your body language, and also based on what you're hearing, right? If you're overall listening well. So I'll give you guys an example. And this happened to anyone. So let's say it is 3, 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. You get this message. I need you to drop everything and fix this mistake immediately. And don't bother explaining why it happened because we don't have time. Tell me. Now, if you got this message, how would you react? How would you respond? How would that make you feel? Like, how would you perceive this? Like, I would feel bothered. Get her done, stressed to the max. The house is on fire and it's my fault. Oh my God, Jennifer, that is me. I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't I could have checked all my T's, dotted all my I's, and I'm gonna think, oh my gosh, what did I do? What happened? Wait, ooh, my heart is racing. I'm definitely thinking something's on fire. Kendra, I am stressed to the max. I feel all of these. Start looking, they don't deserve you. Frustrated. I chat about it later, but typically deal with the crisis, then reconnect. Absolutely. But you know what I'm hearing from all of you is that you're recognizing again, if you put yourself in other person's shoes, right? If you were to receive this message, how it creates that frustration, that panic, that rise in our blood pressure that we didn't need at this time of day. Because there is a way to go about it, right? We all get into modes, we all get into positions where we need to have a discussion, check in with someone, maybe get a little feedback. But the biggest thing about this is that after which you go have a tea. The biggest thing is that this absolutely requires improvement in tone because it's demanding, right? It's hostile. The timing, like I said, it's probably 3 or 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, right? The timing, because it creates that sudden panic without any real context, and listen because it explicitly shuts down the employee's input because it doesn't give you opportunity to respond to address it. It's simply saying, hey, stop everything. This is wrong. Don't tell me why it happened. Just because we don't have time for all that. Just get to it, right? It's so demanding, so rude, so out of context. So words matter, right? Tone matters, timing matters. So things like this is what I mean when I say really being aware of how you show up in that communication as a leader. So let's talk about self-awareness and conflict. And so what you're seeing on the screen is, these trigger responses and reactions and assumptions, right? Because conflict often grows when leaders react without knowing their own trigger. See, a trigger could be you feeling ignored, you feel disrespected, you feel rushed, right? So, like we just looked at that last message. We were all instantly triggered. We were frustrated. We thought we had done something wrong. We just wanted to get to it. Like we were all triggered in that moment because all those feelings of being rushed and having to just get this done, we don't have any say so. That's what that creates. That's when that conflict starts to arise because there's that gap forming, right? But when you know what sets you off, you can respond with more control. It helps you solve the real issue instead of just reacting to the emotion. Again, pause, listen, reflect. And a lot of times, self awareness helps us with our decision making. So when you're stressed, you may lean on old habits or maybe some quick guesses. That is why it helps to stop and ask, wait a minute, hold on, what am I missing? Or what bias might be showing up here? And I talk about those two questions specifically again. What am I missing? What bias might be showing up here? Because those questions help you to slow down and I'm not saying we always necessarily make poor choices, but we can jump the gun, right? And so it helps us to say, okay, let me take a moment to reflect. And biases show up in so many different directions. That bias will come about. You may be thinking, I've been in a situation before. I know exactly what to do. So let me respond. But do you have all the information? Do we have the full context to jump in just yet and give that solution at this time? Or again, what am I missing? So again, are there any blind spots? What have we tried? What have we done in the past or what could we do that may work well, may not have worked well, right? And then again, how much pressure is involved, right? What's the timing of this? What's the timeline to really get into this? Is this something that's extremely urgent? Is it dire need? Do we have a second to really just pause and breathe and say, okay, let me look at this, remove the emotion, let me look at this from a place of logic and really make sure that I'm fully understanding the full context. We've checked all our bases so we can really dig into an actual solution. Again, ask yourselves, what am I missing? Or what bias might be showing up here so we can really slow down to speed up. So I always talk about focusing on the how. And I know these might seem so obvious, but these are your tools to build it. Journaling is number one. I always say write it down. When things go on, whether it's at work, and even some of this, if you think about it at home, like just having that moment to pause and reflect can be so impactful. Whether it's for your stress, well-being, whatever the thing is, journaling, writing those things out, no matter how ugly it is, really helps you to release. Also, ask for feedback. A lot of times what happens when, again, we think we're showing up a certain way or communicating a certain way, it never hurts to ask the other person, no matter if they're, a peer, if you're managing up, managing down, to get that feedback to make sure you're fully aware of how this person perceives you. Because you can ask 5 people and they may all say something different depending on that one statement or that one conversation you guys had. But again, I always talk about pausing, reflection, and then also it never hurts too to have a mentor. I've had several throughout my career, and I've always found that having various perspectives really helps you to get a full, like 360 view again. When we talk about those blind spots or where those biases show up, that's where those mentors come in to bridge that gap to make sure it's not something you're missing or something that you're just not assuming based on your own experiences, right? So lean on these tools. Again, journaling, feedback, pause, reflection, your mentors. These are all simple things that you can within your grasp to just implement to your busy day and to your busy week. And so what I would say is let's talk about a 3-minute reset practice, right? Because these are the signs that can help you to really develop your self-awareness. So let's do a short reset together. First, let's stop. Take one slow breath. Name what you feel. If you're frustrated, if you're nervous, if you're unsure, then choose your response instead of letting the feeling choose it for you. This is a small skill, but can change your whole conversation. So I'm gonna actually, I'm literally going to pause right here, right now, and let you guys do that. Like, stop, take one slow breath, let's do it. And in the chat, let me know like what you're feeling. What's that one feeling that comes to mind? Like the moment is zen, relief, peace, feeling relief. Yeah. Peace. I love it. I love it. And you know what I really enjoy is like doing little exercises like this. Even like I said, journaling things like that. That's even like I call that my me time, right? Like whether we're working in an office, working from home, like having that opportunity to just say, let me recenter. Let me get myself together. Let me make sure I am showing up as my best self, right? That I'm responding to this accordingly. Not just moving off emotion, but just really allowing myself to uh, remain focused, stopping, breathing, naming the feeling, and then choosing that response from there. control the controllables. That's what I look at this as. There's going to always be a lot of chaos, need, urgency around us. We can't stop that, right? But what we can do is control ourselves, right? And be the most aware of how we show up, how we impact others. And that's what it boils down to. So I want to talk about a little bit of an action plan because I'm always, always, always trying to um, make sure that others are taking some accountability. Really, really focusing on you. So your focus is to choose either one trigger, one habit, even just one support person. It might be a mentor. Again, whether you manage peer to peer, up or down, one person. And if you're like myself, you're feeling pretty ambitious. Welcome to do all three. But that is your goal over the next week to start. So I'll leave you ladies with this. Ultimately, self-awareness helps you lead with clarity and confidence. The ultimate goal here at the end of the day is to make sure that you are at the start of building your emotional intelligence. This is where it all begins when you talk about having clarity, having confidence, and showing up as your best self. Every single day with how you communicate, how you make your decisions, how you overcome and resolve conflict in the workplace. And you know what? A lot of times, a lot of this bleeds over at home. So it's the same way to really resolve that. So I'll stop here, leave you guys with that final note. And I want to open the floor to questions or experiences and really just kind of talk with you ladies and see kind of what's top of mind for you right now. What questions might you have?
I can jump in, Teresa. Thank you for being here, first of all. I think everything you're talking about is a really good reminder, especially pausing. That's always like something I've tried to embrace. In all that I do. Everything you're talking about is really good, like in the moment, grounding. Something else that I tie what you're saying to that I do kind of with a little bit further foresight is just trying to be curious and exactly like what you were saying between the uh, pause, listen, notice, adjust. I find like if I can bring curiosity to the discussion or whatever is being set on the table, it really makes me a better engaged and try to see other perspectives too, which instantly calms down that blood boil too. So it was everything you're saying is such a great bridge for me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love that you brought up staying curious because if we shift our perspective when we have challenges or problems in general to say, you know what, why is this happening? What was the reason that led us to this place here, right? And just when you lean in with curiosity, you're able to discover more. So I love that was a key takeaway for you, like and really seeing, the value of continuing to be curious. Like as leaders, I think a lot of time the misconception is that you have all the answers, right? You just know everything because you're the big guy, you're the VP, you're with the whatever title, right? But no, you're constantly curious. You got to this position because you're sincerely curious about how things work, how you can support, how you can help. And when we shift our perspective from challenges and problems to say, you know what? How can we best solve this? What we tried before in the past? How did that work? Why? Maybe we should look at, how can we improve this? What happened? Those type of questions that we ask ourselves again are so important. So I love, love, love that. So, yeah, that's a beautiful takeaway. Oh, in the comments, how to best communicate to others that they need to practice self-awareness. Yes, 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 yes. I think we have all had that supervisor or leader or even a coworker where we're just like, or we just dread talking to them because they just always feel like they're in a bad mood, or they're just so demanding, or they're just difficult to work with. Again, because they may be lacking that, right? So it's talking to them and saying, you know what, for yourself, speak it up and say, you know what, I heard that you needed X, Y, and Z, but let's talk about how that was perceived to me. Because I want to get a little clarity around what you're asking here to make sure I'm understanding properly. There's a certain way to approach that and navigate situations like that. So in trying to communicate that, how others can practice their own self-awareness, right? So we can improve our communication between teams and between departments. Are there any other thoughts? Like I said, I always love to hear the feedback and what you ladies are experiencing.
I'll jump in. I think part of the thing for me, you had a couple slides there. One was on triggers and one was on bias. Um, on the trigger side, for me, I think it's usually, well, anything that makes me feel like I'm 12 years old again. So any sort of situation where like paternal or like directing me what to do or like feeling like I can't have my free thought. That gets very triggering to me. And my hubby calls it my 15-year-old Jen personality comes out. And then, which is the one that like, I don't know, runs out back behind the house and finds some cigarettes or something. Or, takes a riff, whatever. But it's like that sort of like rebel, like that teenage rebel kind of comes out, which is not super productive, in a business case. And then, the bias piece that I'm constantly working on is really strong distrust in general of men.
Mm,
So I'm very much like all about the girl power. And when I'm working with men, it's probably my biggest struggle is not alienating men
mm,
because it's almost like I just presume them to be after something or ulterior motive or take advantage of a situation or and not even just like that, but like financial or like it just is this really bizarre, not bizarre, it's rooted in shit, but like yeah, and that's something that I really struggle with because I don't want to alienate people for sure. Certainly not an entire gender.
oh, for sure. And that's honest. I appreciate the transparency because, and I know I can tell from the type, like the depth of the responses that comes from some deep rooted experiences, right? And it's not just one time. These are probably repetitive experiences you've had with men. But I've had poor experiences. I know many people, of course, have all had poor experiences. What I would say is treat every individual as a clean slate, right? And give them that opportunity to, for lack of better words, prove themselves. Because a lot of times we can, like, based on our perceptions of people, we can definitely misread the room. We can definitely put something on a person that they're not guilty of. I've worked with some men who are very macho man, right? Oh, you're a woman, I'm the boss, or these are my boys, right? But then I've also worked with men who are very much servant leaders. How can I support you? Did that work well? Are you doing the things that you really enjoy? So on and so forth. And so I've learned to not see everyone as the same. So I think my suggestion is to kind of go back to that curiosity mindset, right? If you get into those situations where you assume he's trying to take over or take credit or do something that's self-serving, ask questions. Be curious. I would kind of lean in with them and just kind of like I almost want to pick your brain about certain things and kind of get a clear read of the room, rather than just assuming, like I said, with your boss, just really be curious about what they know, what they're looking to achieve, how you can really collaborate together. And you might be surprised at what really takes place, like how that really transforms your perception in the long run, just putting that little practice in of just sincerely being curious as you work with various men. So I hope that's helpful.
It is. Curiosity, I think, is really key in that situation. And I do know like a number of men that are really strong allies. I know that it's my knee jerk is to kind of give women the benefit of the doubt,
Mhm.
and men have to earn it, which isn't fair. And it also isn't accurate, right? Because
Yeah.
you can get into situations with women that aren't in the best interests of whatever your values are as well, right?
Yeah.
They get a free pass and I test the men.
Yeah, look, it happens. We're at the end of the day, we're human. We're not robots, right? I say we're imperfectly perfect beings. We're learning every day, right? So there's no judgment. There's no slap on the wrist. You're aware of it, and it's just really one of those things of saying, you know what? How do I prove this? That's really how it is. When you lean with the curiosity, it's more of you saying it's not such a negative thing in terms of saying, oh, you do this to everyone. It's just saying, you know what? Just a little different. How can we lean in and kind of change the perception? Is this true in this scenario? Because as you know, you'll find the cases where it is, and you'll find the cases where it isn't. So stay curious. Stay curious. Anyone else want to share? Or have
I can share.
Yeah,
Teresa, I love this programming. It's like amazing, and you're a great presenter, really engaging. So awesome
thank
work.
you.
Um, I think I struggle with something that's maybe like too much self-awareness, and that's because I'm like constantly worried about how I look, how this might make someone else feel, men, women, no matter what. I'm constantly so hyper aware of it that I think that my perception can be that I'm like that I don't have confidence or that maybe I'm like too nice. So I was wondering if you have any thoughts about like the sweet spot of self-awareness because I think you can go really far with that too, like you can go to a place where that impacts your confidence and that also starts in the comments I threw out like people pleasing because obviously that's something that I really focus on. And so yeah, I was just wondering any thoughts about the sweet spot of self-awareness and can you take it too far?
Oh my gosh, yes. In my 20s, oh my God, I was so stressed because early on, you're careless, right? You don't have any experiences to compare to. And as time progressed, especially in my career, I found myself having just type like hitting glass ceilings and I didn't understand why. And so I kept bending and changing and trying to be flexible and helpful and do all these things, improve myself. And I was stressed out. I was stressed out. I was burnt out. I said, you know what, Teresa, who are you? How can you show up as your best self authentically where it doesn't drain you? Because you're trying to shapeshift into something or for someone that you're not. I've grown into a comfort of my self-awareness is I'm very conscious of who I am, how I show up, how I look, all the things. But I've also made a commitment to myself to say, you know what, but this is me. This is authentically me, genuinely, and I need to be respected. I need you to accept me because if I have to shapeshift to be here, this is not where I should be. And so that is something that just sets a clear boundary as well when you have that level of self-awareness. Because when you lose all your boundaries, you want everyone to like you, everyone to respect you, and nobody does, right? And so I have set boundaries and commitments to self to say, you know what, I will go the extra mile because it makes me feel good. I look like this or I dress like this or I show up like this because that's just me. I can carry this into any room I walk into, and if it makes someone else uncomfortable, so be it. I'm being myself. And so you have to maintain that authenticity. You have to set that commitment, that boundary. Say, you know what? I'm being authentic though. I'm not making this up. I'm not putting on a show. I am simply being myself. And if you do not accept me for me, that is a personal problem that I can't really solve for you. And that's where I think again, when you talk about taking too far, I think that's where you have to be like, wait a minute, let me set a boundary. They're not here, but I got them now. And so I hope that's helpful to you.
Hey, Teresa, I had a question. And it's in the chat too. A couple of people I think have the same. Is there a best way to communicate to someone else that they should be practicing self-awareness?
You know, best practice, kind of, I would say yes. Because again, it's about tone, it's about timing. Especially when I think about feedback, right? Because feedback is a two-way street. Um, so no matter your tenure or title, I feel like feedback is an absolute gift. And I think the timing of it is so important because let's say you get into a situation where, like earlier we looked at that message, something maybe not that harsh, but something similar to that effect, depending on the time of day, right? I think it's so important to see a message like that, pause, really evaluate what's right in front of you, lean in with that curiosity and let that person know, hey, I hear what you're saying. I recognize that you need X, Y, and Z, and I'm more than happy to assist you with that. However, the way that you present this to me it sounds accusatory, as if I've done X, Y, and Z. And I just would like to make sure we establish a clear path forward on how we can resolve this together. And I always tailor the message depending on kind of what it is, of course. But I think it's showing up and really not being afraid to speak up and have that conversation with that person respectfully on, hey, I understand, keeping that willingness to help, keeping that willingness to collaborate, but saying, hey, we really need to address this. Because how this message came to me, it made me feel like I was in the wrong, or it made me feel like express that, have that conversation. As two adults or a group of people, we should be able to have these conversations to not say you hurt my feelings, to say I want to make sure at the end of the day we're able to have a positive relationship working together so we can really continue to do good business or good collaborations so that we can really make sure we have uh, a positive experience, that we're really communicating well with each other so we fully understand how what we need to achieve this goal, or to get to the project data, whatever the thing is, just simply being honest and professional about what that path looks like as a unit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it okay if I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
Sorry, my computer just froze on me. I can't see you guys, but I think what you said about not being afraid is so key. Because I've been in the same situation that Becky mentioned in terms of overthinking the awareness part. And I think it had to get to a point where I'm always in a room with men that might be aware or might not be aware, but some of the things they would say that I might not say as a woman that is constantly thinking about how am I coming across. I got to a point where I'm like, I deserve to be in this room. Like, what is that difference? Why are they here and they're able to say whatever they think without thinking? And I'm looking at myself, cautious and kind of, but also not being afraid to like challenge some of the things that you're hearing with the valid points. Obviously, I mean, for me, I'm always prepared. I always have the data. But I would challenge some of the things that are being said. Like, what do you mean by that? Help me understand a little bit more. But here's what I think. That helped build up my confidence
Mm-hmm.
to see myself as deserving to be there and having a voice. And I think that's earned the respect internally within my organization, where now they come to me for, what do you think about this? Like you're the expert in this field. Like, what is your feedback? I think for a long time I was just afraid to speak up because I'm like, how am I going to be perceived? And
Mm-hmm.
it took a lot of work to get out of that. And I had to build that confidence to get to the level where I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like I can challenge you. I deserve to challenge you just like you have been challenging me where I stayed quiet. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. I like that you brought up your experience directly because when you think about being in a room with whomever, like men, other women, so on and so forth, ask yourself internally, we're all in the same room. So why is my voice of any less value than yours when we're all in the same room? I don't care about title and tenure and position. We're all in the same room for a reason. So that means someone who brought us together saw that we all had equal value to be here to collaborate on this shared goal, this shared project, this shared whatever. And so I love that you challenge yourself. You got out of your comfort zone to really challenge yourself and say, you know what, let me speak up, because I'll tell you, when people who attempt to belittle you or make you feel smaller than what you are, that is an insecurity within themselves that you can't solve for. So it's so important that, again, you speak up, you challenge, you lean with curiosity. We're not being debatable or trying to conflict. We're simply trying to understand, right? A lot of times, especially with different men, they get into this mindset where they want to be the leader, right? They want to feel big. A lot of times they don't have that voice at home. It's not your problem. I'm not saying to make it your problem, but what I'm saying is when you understand, um, even when you develop your own self-awareness and you kind of start to understand and see how people might show up in the workplace, good or bad, it kind of helps you understand, okay, how do I navigate this person to really get them to do the things I need them to do, or collaborate better, communicate better, whatever the case is. How do I really need to talk to them? Because maybe at home they feel controlled, so they come here and they're just a complete a-hole, right? And they look at women as, oh, she's X, Y, and Z, because he's not the big guy at home either. But he's the big guy here. you know and I've been in those situations where I've seen that happen on the spectrum. And so I think it's so important to, be curious and really kind of put yourself in their shoes and say, how can I challenge this person in a healthy way to understand that I'm equally respectful just as they are. I equally earn to be in this room just the same as they did. Because again, if you allow people to continue to belittle you, they already had a perception, so they're trying you. They're going to try you and see how far they can go. They're going to push buttons. They're going to test boundaries. You let them. You prove to them their boundary doesn't exist. They will go over every time. So you start testing those things back. So I love that you discovered it for yourself, build your confidence, and like I said, got your comfort zone and did that.
Amazing. We are at time. It flies on these monthly calls. So amazing. Taresa, thank you so much for an amazing presentation and conversation afterwards. And thank you to all the ladies for your killer participation as always.